Hello, everyone. On behalf of the Council of the Great Lakes Region, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our second webinar of the year, part of our Business and Sustainability webinar series. I am Laura Schrake, the Senior Program Director, Business and Sustainability with the Council of the Great Lakes Region, and it's great to have you joining us. During today's webinar, we will take a look at supporting sustainable agriculture through partnership and responsible sourcing. And to discuss this topic from the perspective of a food manufacturing company, we have two excellent speakers from the Kellogg Company with us today. I will introduce them shortly, but first I would like to introduce you to the Council of the Great Lakes Region and give some context on the region as it relates to today's webinar topic. The Council of the Great Lakes Region is a binational network of organizations that is committed to finding solutions for socioeconomic and environmental issues facing the North American Great Lakes region. We do this by convening and connecting diverse perspectives and interests. And across borders and sectors, we're working to cultivate understanding and to create action and a united voice on pressing regional issues. Today's webinar is also part of our growing Business and Sustainability Network, an effort funded by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation. The network aims to get companies and business leaders engaged in critical policy conversations about protecting the Great Lakes environment while supporting the region's economic growth. And because no one level of government or sector in the Great Lakes has the power or investment necessary to solve the region's challenges on their own, we've developed multi-sector and multi-stakeholder programs. We are bringing together all stakeholder groups to advance priorities, projects, and partnerships that are necessary for a sustainable region. Our focus areas are issues critical to the region, like water stewardship, decarbonization, circular economy, and sustainable farming and food production. I won't go into detail on these programs today, but I did want to highlight the focus areas, and we will put some links into the chat for you to check out later. The team and I would certainly be happy to share information to anyone who expresses interest. These programs are designed to be collaborative, and we are welcoming business engagement across the programs and also across the broader sustainability and business and sustainability network. Working together to support the region's economic strength and sustainability is key for the long-term success of both the US and Canada. This region is significant on many levels. The Great Lakes are one of the largest surface freshwater systems in the world, holding 20% of all of Earth's surface freshwater and 84% of North America's. Additionally, the lakes provide drinking water for 40 million people. And economically, with a GDP of roughly $6 trillion US, the economic Great Lakes region would equal the third largest national economy in the world if the region was a country. So the Great Lakes really are the crown jewel of North America, and the region is the economic engine. So I've mentioned the significance of the Great Lakes region, but I also want to touch on why today's webinar topic is so important. Farming is one of the primary uses of land in the Great Lakes region and has always been a vital component of the region's economy, accounting for a substantial amount of the agriculture and agri-food trade between the US and Canada. The region's fertile lands and abundant freshwater provide ideal conditions for growing a variety of crops, notably corn, wheat, and soybean. And the region also offers excellent conditions for livestock, such as raising cattle for dairy production. However, as demands for the foods grown in the region increase, so do the demands on the region's lands and waters. And this will come at a steep price if we're not able to accelerate the adoption of sustainable farming and other food production best practices. Despite their size, the Great Lakes and our environment at large are vulnerable to pollution, especially chemical pollution. And because the lakes turn over slowly, persistent pollutants that enter the lakes can remain for many years, can accumulate, and can often migrate up the food chain, thus having a bigger impact on the ecosystem health. There are a number of sources of pollutants that can throw the ecosystem out of balance, including excess nutrients from agricultural runoff and untreated sewage, especially from concentrated large-scale farming operations. For example, biogeochemical flows of phosphorus and nitrogen threaten the Great Lakes ecosystem. These are both driven by current agricultural practices, but can be mitigated with sustainable farming practices. And by sustainable farming practices, I'm referring to methods like cover crops, crop rotation, conservation tillage, and buffer strips, for example. These practices help the environment in a number of ways by reducing agricultural runoff, preventing pollution of waterways, naturally maintaining soil fertility and enhancing carbon sequestration, reducing water use, and also helping to decrease emissions of air pollutants. Companies in the consumer packaged goods industry, particularly those in the food and beverage industry, are increasingly working with farmers who are growing the foods they need in order to manufacture the products they sell. Many are also aware of their responsibility to support sustainable agriculture by responsibly sourcing the ingredients they need. And with investments and sustainability commitments, companies like Kellogg's can support and foster sustainable solutions for our food systems. So during today's webinar, we will hear from two speakers from Kellogg Company, the multinational food manufacturing giant that's headquartered here in the Great Lakes region. They will share the company's approach to sustainability, particularly with respect to supporting sustainable food production, climate positive agricultural practices, and responsible sourcing. Our Kellogg's guests today are Janelle Myers and Jennifer King. Janelle Myers is Kellogg's Chief Sustainability Officer. She has 20 plus years of experience enhancing economic, environmental, and social performance of global value chains, products, and services. Prior to becoming CSO, Janelle held several roles in global procurement, including leading Kellogg's global supplier relationship management, supplier diversity, and responsible sourcing programs. Jennifer King is Senior Director, Supply Chain Plant-Based Protein at Kellogg Company. And Jennifer facilitates the sustainability and responsible sourcing efforts of the plant-based protein business and leads a team of supply chain professionals managing operations, spanning from the sourcing of ingredients and packaging materials to the delivery of goods to customers. So I'll hand it over to Janelle and Jennifer. After their presentation, we will have a short Q&A session. So if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box and we'll try to get to as many as we can. So Janelle and Jennifer, thank you so much for being here with us, and I will hand it over to you.
Excellent. Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. So greetings from Battle Creek, Michigan and the Kellogg Company. I hope you're all staying safe and warm, given that I think we're all maybe dealing with similar conditions today across the Great Lakes, ice and snow and power outages. So hope everyone is safe, but we really appreciate the opportunity to spend time with you. As just mentioned, we're a global manufacturer of cereal, snacks, and plant-based foods. We're based here in Battle Creek, Michigan, with operations around the globe. And it's a true honor to receive this invite, in particular, as we're a Great Lakes-based organization. But we really appreciate a forum such as the Great Lakes Council that brings different industries, different players and partners together to be able to share best practices and network and identify partnership opportunities. So thank you from both Jen and I and the Kellogg Company for this invite. We do appreciate it, and we look forward to future conversations and partnerships as well too. So today, Jen and I are going to share Kellogg's ESG strategy, or environmental social governance strategy. We're going to talk about some of our commitments. We're going to talk about the business case, and we'll dive into specifically some examples of how Kellogg is approaching sustainable agriculture, including thinking about water stewardship, as well as farmer engagement, soil health, climate impacts, all different community impacts. And we're going to be sharing a high level of what our approach is, but then we would love to get into very specifically a few projects, 2 that are here in the Midwest, and then 1 as well that is in Louisiana. All of those do relate to sustainable agriculture, and all of them, for the most part, have a water component, which we thought would be really of interest for this group, given our focus on the Great Lakes as well. And with that, Jen, if you'll go to the next slide. So let's just dive a little bit more into Kellogg and how we're thinking about environmental social governance, ESG. So our company was founded in 1906. Our founder here, W.K. Kellogg, was an early philanthropist and conservationalist. He believed that part of running a good business was doing good for society. And his promise of better days has guided our company for over a century. And today, our ESG strategy is called our Better Days Promise. And you might be asking yourself, what is a better day? So let's roll the video, and our CEO, Steve, will show you what we mean.
If someone asked you to make a day better, what would you say? What would you do? At Kellogg, we believe a better day is a day where people are fed and fulfilled. A day where our planet thrives. A day where there is a place at the table for everyone. Our founder, W.K. Kellogg, believed that part of running a good business was doing good for society. This North Star has guided our company for over a century, and it remains our core promise today to create better days and a good and just world. We're focused on the intersection of hunger, sustainability, well-being, and equity, diversity, and inclusion, and are striving to have a lasting impact in communities around the world. Working together, we will advance sustainable and equitable access to food by nourishing 1 billion people with our foods, feeding 375 million people in need, supporting 1 million farmers while working to protect our Earth's resources, ensuring equity, diversity, and inclusion in our own workforce by advancing gender parity and underrepresented talent at the management level, and engaging and advocating for 1.5 billion people on issues like food security, so that everyone has what they need to fulfill their potential. By the end of 2030, we will create better days for 3 billion people. Our Better Days Promise is our roadmap to fulfill these ambitions and lead the way to a more sustainable and equitable future for all. W.K. Kellogg was proud of being able to help people help themselves, an ambition that lives even stronger in us today. Join us to help make better days for everyone, everywhere. I want to ask you to make.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Jen. So now let's take a look at our specific commitments to achieving better days for 3 billion people by the end of 2030. Through our Better Days Promise, we're focusing on the most influential and material issues to our business, which when you look around the 4 concentric circles there, you have a sustainability, well-being, equity, diversity, inclusion, and hunger. Now, focusing on these priority areas allows us to differentiate our strategy and to lean into our strengths. And let me just break each one down just briefly. So first, let's look at hunger. We have a rich heritage and long-standing history of supporting and enhancing feeding programs to address hunger, particularly for children. Our second priority is in well-being, and it's how we nourish people with our foods. Each day, our brands deliver nutrients of needs while also addressing physical, emotional, and societal needs through programs such as our Childhood Wellbeing Promise. And we also have equity and diversity inclusion. And this is our work to promote and infuse equity, diversity, inclusion through our work recruitment, retention efforts. We have a commitment to reach pay parity, gender parity. We provide training and career development. And we also want to make sure that we reflect the diverse communities of which we serve, and that includes then also working with our diverse suppliers in the community, working with diverse farmers in our communities as well too. And then finally, we have a role to play in addressing climate change through our commitment to sustainability. We're committed to areas such as sustainable packaging, sustainable energy efficiency, reducing greenhouse gas emission, and continuing to drive responsible sourcing while also protecting human rights, support soil health, and reduce organic waste. And importantly, here in our Better Days Promise with the 4 interlapping circles, is that our strategy is to address the interconnectivity between these issues. That's where we feel the magic happens, at the intersections of these issues when they come together. All of these are related because it's an ecosystem, but some of the overlaps as one example. So for our changing climate, it directly impacts the health of people. It reduces crop yields and thereby impacts our food security. And then often diverse and underserved communities are disproportionately impacted by climate change, and you'll likely see increased impacts because of existing barriers to health and access to nutritious foods. And then diverse and underserved communities are also at most risk for hunger as well as obesity. So by addressing these interrelated issues, we are able to achieve a sustainable and equitable access to food, a basic right. And we'll only be successful if we view these issues in a holistic lens and focus our efforts on addressing the intersections and the root causes of these issues. And also, that's an invitation as well. Of course, our entire cross sector this is a large system. We're all in this together, and that's where we can really learn from each other and work together. So let me dive into, if we go to the next slide, we'll start diving into specifically sustainability now. So the first area that I want to talk about was our own operations, our own back door. And so what you can see here on the slide are some of our internal commitments on our own operations. The first off have to do obviously with climate. We know that the latest UN IPCC climate change report warns of irreversible impacts of global warming. Over 40% of the world's population are highly vulnerable to impacts from climate, the study shares. And as a company, we want to make sure that we're respecting the natural limits of our planet by conserving natural resources all along our value chain, by meeting our science-based climate targets, responsibly sourcing our ingredients, reducing waste, and providing sustainable packaging that is reusable, recyclable, and compostable. And together, we will reduce greenhouse gases in our operations across our value chain. We will reduce our water use and reduce our waste in our facilities. And one of the pieces that I wanted to talk about just real briefly, you'll see on the slide here that we have our own scope 1 and 2 science-based targets on greenhouse gas to achieve a 45% reduction by 2030. We also have commitments on scope 3, which would be the greenhouse gas emissions from forward in our supply chain. So looking at partnering with our suppliers and growers on how our products and the ingredients or packaging are grown and manufactured. And then also after they leave our amazing bakeries, then they also go to our customers and consumers as well too. That would be considered scope 3. And there we have a commitment to reduce our greenhouse gas footprint 15% by 2030. We also have longer term goals to 2050. I'm happy to share against that goal. We're at 13% as of 2021. And on the first goal, 45%, we're at 29%. We also have a commitment to achieve 100% renewable electricity in all facilities globally by the end of 2050. We're about 29% of our way there. And then we have a goal. We were going to talk about how important water is, and water in our particular area, areas where we have our sites, really important for where a lot of our ingredients are grown as well too. But we also think about it from where our sites are located in the communities of where we reside. And so we have a commitment to reduce our water use in facilities and high water stress regions by 30% by the end of 2030 as well, and making progress in the 20s against that commitment as well too. Next, let's go to our operations outside, really talking more about our scope 3 and our value chain. Our value chain is a very large component of these and goals and commitments. When you look at our entire greenhouse gas footprint, and I know this is somewhat similar to other organizations as well too, when you look at our entire footprint, about 15% comes from our scope 1 and 2, our own operations, and the electricity that we use off the grid. But over 85% of our emissions is actually from scope 3, which is why we're putting such a large emphasis on our suppliers, ingredients, and packaging. And we're making progress on reducing the goal. As I mentioned, as of 2021, we were at 13% against our 15% goal. But let's share a little bit of some of those more specific goals. First, let me talk a little bit about packaging before we dive in a little bit deeper on in particular sustainable agriculture programs. But we know that packaging is definitely something that's top of mind for consumers, NGOs, and others as well too. We are committed, along with others within the food industry, to achieve 100% reusable, recyclable, compostable packaging by volume by the end of 2025. And we're really, there's a lot of different partnership opportunities there, looking at the recycling infrastructure, looking at the types of better plastics that are available. Definitely, I know there's a lot of great partners on the phone here as well too that I want to recognize and thank for their partnership. But those are one areas in particular when we think about recycling infrastructure that I think could be a potential for us to think about. So then from packaging, then let's move into ingredients, the main topic of our conversation today. So we know that we need to build resilience and responsible supply chains, both environmentally and socially, for our priority ingredients. And we have here at Kellogg, we've done a materiality assessment looking at volume and then risk from an environmental and social impact, as well as animal welfare impact, and identified what would be considered our priority ingredients that we need to focus on. We have about 15 priority ingredients, and some of those here in the Great Lakes we're very familiar with. A lot of the different row crops, wheat and corn, rice, soy, those types of things. Also, we're looking at palm oil. We're looking at cocoa, nuts and fruits, and those different types of categories. Beyond what we're doing to help build resilient supply chains, I also wanted to mention, going back to the beginning, we talked about creating better days for 3 billion people. One of the commitments that we feel really strongly about is the partnership along our value chain to be able to tackle all of these issues. And so we have a commitment to support 1 million farmers and workers globally, especially women and smallholders. And we're really proud of our efforts there, where to date, as of 2021, we've been able to engage about 445,000 people. So the map. I wanted to share that the map on the right-hand side, what you're looking at here, and this is publicly available, happy to share the link to it as well too. You might be asking, what are the different types of projects that you have? How are you working with farmers and suppliers? This is our origins map, and essentially what this is, I mentioned we have those 15 priority ingredients. These are the different projects that we have on the ground called origins investments. Obviously from an origins name, really focused on where are the ingredients that we source coming from, and how can we make strategic interventions and partnerships on the ground to really help drive sustainable agriculture. And so these little spoons represent a number of those different projects. We're going to go into a few of those today. But just before we do that, just want to talk a little bit about our approach. So in our ingredient supply chain, we are building climate risk and resiliency into our ingredient materiality process. And we really prioritize greenhouse gas reductions in our origins projects for those most impacted supply chains. We work with suppliers, we work with farmers, scientists, NGOs, other community partners as well, to identify opportunities to help farmers and workers improve climate resiliency, enhance biodiversity, improve livelihoods, and help address human rights and equity. We do so first at a high scale, broad scale. We do so first by measuring continuous improvement through some different tools, one of those being an internal tool called the Kellogg Grower Survey. There's also external equivalent tools like the Cool Farm tool, the Field Print from the Field to Market platform, as well as the SAI platform for farm sustainability assessment. So first is understanding our impact in our footprint and gathering all that information from a field level. From there, Kellogg and our partners establish Kellogg Origins projects. to provide training and technical assistance and share best practices that improve farm productivity, regenerate soil health, protect species, and reduce greenhouse gas. And as I mentioned, since 2015, we've partnered with almost over 445,000 farmers in about 29 to 30 countries. So let's dive into some examples. And Jen, if you'll go to the next slide, we'll start with our STAR program.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Janelle, and thanks to the Council of the Great Lakes region for having us. I want to talk to you a little bit about the STAR program, and it's part of our Supporting U.S. Farmers program. And this one in particular, for me, I got to have the experience of going out to the field and talking with one of the farmers that's part of this program. And you see in the picture, all of us in the field looking at some soil. So I want to tell you a little bit about that story and then talk about, what exactly it is we're doing there. So the partnership with the Nature Conservancy has us working directly with farmers, but of course in an ecosystem type of way. We know we have a lot to do and a big responsibility, but we also know we can't do it alone. So it is good partners like the Nature Conservancy that help connect us in partnership with our suppliers to get down to the farmer level to be able to have these critical conversations around sustainability. So this day in particular, we were in Cayuga, Indiana, and we were talking with the farmer, and we were talking about different farming practices. And through the STAR program, this farmer has been relatively influential in talking with his neighbors and his fellow farmers in his area. And they've done a lot with no-till production. So this farmer did a very great visual for us that day that will forever be stuck in my head. We actually picked up some soil from a field that had been no-till for a couple of years through the STAR program. And then we went and took a shovel of dirt from a nearby field that was not. And we did an experiment where we actually put water through that soil into a clear cup. One cup actually had a lot of sediment, which would indicate the runoff, or it simulates the runoff scenario, so to speak. And the other had almost nothing. You could drink from the glass of water after it went through the soil. And it was a super visual for everyone to see just what kind of benefits the no-till program had for the land in terms of what kind of runoff was making it to the watershed in that area. So it's something that for me, it was a visual that it connected all of those dots. We do all of this work every day, partnering with the Nature Conservancy, with our suppliers, and doing all that work, but to see it actually take flight in the field, if you will, was really something quite special. So this program is very cool because we do, again, like I said, work through the suppliers. And as someone who's in supply chain, definitely, admittedly, not your sustainability expert, but I will tell you that at Kellogg, because you are part of the supply chain and that's where we make it happen, it's a part of who we are. And we are also part of that ecosystem, like I said. So this project really is aiming to reduce cost, risk, and knowledge barriers to scale those adoptions of those conservation practices. And like I said, demonstrating the improved outcome, that's what we did that day in the field. It was demonstrated. And the farmers that are near this particular farmer have started to adopt it. And that's the beauty of that type of a program. So this is the type of work that we are happy to be a part of, and part of an ecosystem and a larger partnership with folks in our supply chain. So again, happy to answer any questions on this program if you'd like, but very proud of what we've done here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jen, and really appreciate your hands-on involvement in those projects as well, too. It's so important that our procurement and sourcing peers are able to, get out and to be able to connect with our growers as well, too, and bring back those lessons, but really helpful to help support we really recognize, farmers are an important partner within this journey as well too. We definitely feel that, they, for them, their fields, right, are a legacy. It's their asset. They want to protect it just as much as the rest of us do as well too. And I think getting out there and supporting and telling their stories and helping provide technical or financial assistance where we can, that's really critical. So firsthand experience there from Jen's experience. And then I'll just wrap up with this one, and then I'll jump into one other example before we jump to Q&A. I see a lot of Q&A in the chat already, so looking forward to that as well too. So we'll just wrap up here in a few more minutes. Just to wrap up this supporting U.S. Farmer and STAR program, just wanted to share a few of the results as well too. So from 2019 to 2021, this particular project really focused on crops across a number of different states. So in Arkansas and rice, corn and soybeans in Illinois, corn in Indiana and Nebraska, and wheat in Michigan. So from 2019 to 2021, this program was able to engage about 250 farmers. We were able to impact over about 100,000 unique acres. We also, for some of the example programs in Michigan, we worked through the adoption of improved practices, which prevented greenhouse gas reduction, as well as sediment load into surrounding water bodies. And then also in the Illinois project as well too, through peer networks and program development in Illinois, 39 of those growers received direct technical assistance, leading to about 1,800 acres of new no-till strip till 2,400 acres of cover crops. The partnerships are really important. I just wanted to call out as well too. We obviously talked a lot about suppliers. We've talked about farmers, the technical providers as well too, that are providing that technical assistance, whether it be the Nature Conservancy or the STAR program, our individual regional programs as well too. They're critically important partners to be able to provide farmers that support of technical assistance and best practices. So just want to say thank you for those efforts as well too. Critical, important of our ecosystem. So the last example that we wanted to talk into, it's not necessarily in the Great Lakes region, but it is focused on one of our core ingredients as well too, a priority ingredient, which is rice. And there's certainly some applicability here to the Great Lakes region as well too, because rice, obviously, while it's a huge contributor to greenhouse gas as well too, it is about water conservation and water quality as well too. So we thought we'd share one example outside of the Midwest, and this is focused on our Louisiana rice program. And so first off, you might be wondering why rice? So rice is a priority ingredient, and it's definitely one of our origins projects, not only here in the United States, but in other geographical regions for Kellogg as well too. Kellogg rice is important. It's iconic in some of our foods. Kellogg's Rice Krispies cereal, the treats, as well as a Special K as well too. And the importance why we're focused on rice, not only is it really important to our business and to communities, but it's really important as well from a greenhouse gas perspective. Methane from rice production contributes to about 1.5% of the total greenhouse gas emissions around the globe, and it's about 25 more times potent than carbon dioxide. And so earlier in 2022 and 2021, it was announced in 2021 and then launched in 2022, Kellogg's was really excited to announce our Kellogg's Ingrained program. It's a $2 million 5-year program that will partner with lower Mississippi River Basin rice farmers to reduce their climate impact, ensuring benefits for both people and planet are ingrained in our foods. And what did we do? So we identified some cross-sectional partners. As I mentioned, the ecosystem is so critical. So one of our suppliers, Kennedy Rice Farm, was one of our suppliers, and their growers are involved. Syngenta providing some technical assistance. We worked with a partner named Regrow, who provides satellite imagery monitoring and verification. And we piloted this program in the Northeast Louisiana in 2021 in collaboration with our rice producers, our Kennedy Rice Farm, and the agribusiness firm of Syngenta. So let's just talk a little bit about some of those different partners and how we set up these programs. The first is that we hired Regrow. They're a trusted third-party that provides secure measurement, support, and reporting verification. They have a satellite-based platform that can help determine where, different types of interventions, different types of sustainable practices. In this case, we were looking at alternative wet dry as well as row crop, what kind of benefits that would have to a reduction of greenhouse gas with on-field. And so a system like that with Regrow is able to actually share and support the growers on where they might want to try one practice versus the other. It also helps measure our greenhouse gas impact from before harvest to post-harvest, which is critically important because for all of these, we want to know if these practices and these types of programs, how are they benefiting the products in our communities and our growers, and our impact that we want to drive around greenhouse gas reduction. It's really important to know before and after if these programs are having the impact that we want, because it'll help us then be able to identify which of those initiatives are able to scale because they're really delivering the results that we want. This one I wanted to share as well too. It's a really exciting story because not only have we engaged from the farmer forward with different partners, this is a story we've actually engaged also with our retail partners as well too. So we partnered with Walmart and our Walmart sales team to help tell this story in Q4 of 2022. We actually talked about this story, and we highlighted some of our US farmers that we're partnering with. We actually highlighted those on some of our different products in store during the Q4 timeframe. We also held 200 parking lot retailtainment events in Walmart parking lots that taught customers about the benefits of soil health and how our program is helping improve soil health in the program. And so really great opportunity. I know consumers are very interested, on where their products are grown, how they're made, who are some of the folks that are involved in that process. And one of the other things that I wanted to mention about as well too, we talked about the intersection of our Better Days promise. Clearly, obviously, we've talked a little bit about the environmental story. But also wanted to share a little bit about some of the farmers that we're partnered with as well too. One of the stories that we're able to share in the Walmart activation as well too is about Kennedy Rice Farm. Kennedy Rice Farm is a 4th generation rice farming family. It is now owned by 4 sisters. And so it really does contribute to the idea of ensuring that we have all different partners and diverse and equitable access to these projects. And those perspectives. So we're really excited to be able to look for those type of opportunities as we build our programs as well too. And I already saw a question about veteran-owned farmers as well too. Absolutely. We don't source directly from farmers, we source from our suppliers, but from a development opportunity, absolutely, we are interested in those opportunities. Please raise your hand to Kellogg, raise your hand to suppliers as well too. And we definitely want to be able to partner and ensure the diversity of our supply chains. So the last thing I wanted to mention was just a little bit about the results before we wrap it. So the results I mentioned, this was our first year in 2021. And what we are really excited about the pilot year. It was a success. It was the first year the program removed an equivalent of taking more than 345 gasoline powered cars off the road in 1 year. We also learned how to partner with farmers to execute this program. Throughout the pilot year, Kellogg was at the table with our growers to listen to their perspectives and feedback and to make the program successful for all that are involved. And some of the learnings are along what are the different practices that work. We might have a perspective going in, but in reality that might be different. So, in this case, we were trialing practices that reduce greenhouse gas, including alternative wetting as well and drying, and then also row cropping as well too. And those are still really new practices for rice production in North America. And then we also learned as well too about, how do we build incentives for these programs as well too? One of the things that we're doing in this program is that for every ton of greenhouse gas that is abated on field, the farmers get an incentive. They also get a farmer incentive for the practices and trialing those as well too, because we know sometimes there's that upfront cost and some risk to trying some new practices. So for us, it's really an opportunity to understand in the ecosystem, how can Kellogg contribute in the best way? And then what's next? As Kellogg and their partners transition to our second year here in 2023, we're applying these learnings. And I would say we're also applying these learnings to other programs. So future programs here in the Great Lakes, as well as other programs around the world, from an incentive and what practices work on certain products, and then even how we engage and tell the story with consumers. So really excited to go into our second year, to have another year of learnings and partnership and apply those learnings not only to ingrained other Great Lakes programs and then to the globe at large. And before we wrap up, we've shared a little bit about this project, and what I thought we could do is also hear from some of the growers and partners that are involved in this particular program. So Jen, maybe before we open or close it and open it for questions, let's just roll the ingrained video as well.
I'm Ashley Dixon, Farm Manager of Kennedy Rice Farms.
I'm Chantel Dixon. I'm the Sustainability Manager. We are rice farmers in Northeast Louisiana. Conventional rice practices has methane that goes into the atmosphere. And one of our biggest concerns being rice farmers is we want to leave less of a footprint for our generations to come.
Kellogg's Grain Program is a program that provides technical and financial assistance to rice farmers to help them reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We're working with 5 family farms to pilot this initiative and really doing our part to make sure that we are creating the future that we want to see.
Within Grain, we identified 2 practices that we can offer to farmers that help reduce methane, but also help take some of the risk off the shoulders of the grower, so it's easier to make those decisions and to implement these practices.
It's been a great first pilot year, and we're excited about what we have produced and to be able to be helping with the emissions in this way.
It's really magnificent to be able to come to a farm like this one and to see the values that we have being implemented, being exercised, and actually working in the field to help to shape the planet and help provide a climate positive future for the world.
Excellent. So with that, we'll wrap up. Again, just I want to say a huge thank you to this for this opportunity. Thank you, Jen, for your leadership as well too. Look forward to future conversations. I hope that gives you a perspective on Kellogg's Better Days Promise ESG strategy, some of the different commitments and some examples of how we are approaching working with the ecosystem on sustainable agriculture. And with that, I think we will open up for questions.
Great. Yes. Thank you, Janelle and Jennifer. That was great. It's really interesting to hear about the different sustainability initiatives you have. I mean, for such a global company, you have your hands in a lot of different areas. So great to get some of those Great Lakes examples also, and understand how sort of all those moving parts are fitting together. We do have a number of questions coming in. I'll just, they've been coming in both the chat and the Q&A. So I'll ask if anybody has any new questions, please make sure they go in the Q&A box. It just helps keep it a little bit easier to keep track of the questions as they come in. But I'll start with one regarding the STAR program. And the question is, does the STAR program help pay the farmers to have idle fields? Is that how it assists them in the runoff example?
It's a very specific question. I don't have the answer to that. We will have to go back and look at that specific element. Jen, are you familiar with that component?
I don't know specifically if it's for for leaving the fields without a crop, but there are elements of funding from Kellogg in that program. And again, it is really about education and reaching the farmers through our suppliers and through those partnerships. But yeah, we can come back on that specific piece.
Yep,
Okay,
absolutely.
great.
Thank you for that question, though.
Great. And we have, let's see, here's a question. How do your sustainable agriculture projects financially support implementation of the conservation practices? Is Kellogg paying for those practices on farms, or are you relying on federal conservation programs to pay for those?
I would say there are multiple tools in the toolbox on this one, absolutely. So we just gave an example of ingrained. In grain, we are providing incentive both for the greenhouse gas abatement from pre and post harvest measurement, but we're also investing an incentive for the growers to try to one of those two practices, either the alternative wet dry or the row crop. So yes, and in that particular example, that's what we found was necessary. But it definitely depends across the entire globe by ingredient and by that ecosystem on the ground and what partners are involved. There's many different types of incentives. So you mentioned a few of them there as well too. So sometimes it is incentives either from Kellogg or from other players as well too. Other times it could be more technical assistance. In this case, we had an example of that. And also Jen was just talking about that, right, from an education perspective on some of the STAR programs as well. Sometimes it's more providing, working with partners, whether it be the Nature Conservancy or in Syngenta or whoever, to provide that technical assistance as well too. And then sometimes it's community investment as well too. What does that community need? And we see that a little bit more in other types of ingredients as well. So it is one tool in the toolbox. We are open, right? We try to understand what is really needed, what can drive the impact on each of the different projects, geographies, and commodities. And we're also, I think where we are is just an industry as well too, is understanding which of those levers are really scalable.
Mm-hmm.
I would just add too, from a supply chain and sourcing lens, I think, something that Janelle and I spoke about during the presentation was really just how, and I hate to use the word again, but ingrained in our supply chain and our people. Like, we live here too, and we care about this area as well. And what I think you've really seen very, very much over the last several years is that I'm proud of the way that Kellogg and Janelle's team has really brought that to the supply chain. So what you'll see is the supply chain really reaching out and asking for help. We're not the experts at all of these things, and that speaks again to the ecosystem. So when we're reaching out and doing sourcing events with suppliers and talking to our partners within the supply chain, we're asking for their expertise too, and we're actually making some decisions based on those types of that expertise and value that those players can bring to our supply chain as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you've mentioned, I think you've given a lot of good examples about partnership, and I think really sort of driven home the message that partnerships are critical for Kellogg's to achieve its sustainability goals and targets. I'm curious, how do you identify your partners that you're working with? Are they coming to you, or are you seeking them out?
It's both ways. For sure, there's a lot of collaboration within the industry. Where we have similar objectives, where we're trying to potentially maybe drive the same outcome, and it's much better to partner together to amplify than it is to kind of go it alone. We have examples even around the globe in different regions where we're partnered up with other food companies and other retailers as well too, and different technical providers. So it definitely can go both ways as far as we might be seeking a particular partner because maybe we haven't identified a partner yet in a particular area. A lot of times from our engagement with our growers and with others on our suppliers, right, that might have the mills on ground, they're recommending partners as well too. And it could be academic, it could be government, it could be NGO, all different types of partners as well too. And really in particular, it's really important to start now also bringing in those, we talked a little bit about regrow on the rice program, but to be able to have a really robust third-party measurement, reporting, and verification so that you can demonstrate the outcome that you're trying to achieve. So all different partners, and absolutely it could be approach us, or it could be we're reaching out because maybe we're looking for a partner in a particular ingredient, commodity, or location.
Sure. I have a question that's come in asking if either of you would be able to speak to programs available to farmers in Ontario or Quebec, so on the Canadian side of the Great Lakes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, for sure, we have operations as well, coming out of Belleville, Canada as well too, with our Canadian operations as well too. I'm not aware of an active origins project there today, but that's certainly we have a lot of key priority ingredients as well too, right, grown in Ontario as well too. So that could be a potential in the future, absolutely. And we'll continue as we look at the opportunities, look at our ingredients, look at where we need to partner together. We'll look for those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned there was a question earlier about the veterans, veteran farmers.
Yes.
There's another question that's come in around working with emerging farmers and diverse farmers.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. We actually just recently announced a partnership with Meijer, another Midwest retailer as well, to really help support young farmers and the emergence of young farmers and talent, and be able to identify what support is needed, education, training, benchmarking. So we just announced a partnership there with Young Farmers of America and Meijer as well. And absolutely, we're also looking at different programs I can't speak to yet, looking at other types of diverse farmers and engagement, and really trying to identify farmers, identify what the opportunities are, as farmers are coming into onto farm as well too. What will they need? How can we help contribute to those programs so they're getting the support that they need as well too? Because we do want to. There is a lack of diversity, right, in our farming communities, and we do definitely through our ED&I support and think that having that diversity is critically important to, again, that ecosystem, and be able to really help communities thrive.
Mm-hmm.
So absolutely, I really appreciate the young farmer comment, as well as the veteran comment as well too.
Yeah, great, thank you.
And I would say, if I just might, Laura, I mentioned we don't necessarily, we work with our suppliers who work with growers as well too, but I did just want to point out, we do have a supplier diversity program, and there's more information about that program, requirements to being a supplier code of conduct, and so forth. There's more information on our Kellogg, about Kellogg, a website as well too. And we're very active in different types of networks, whether it's women business owners or LGBT or the Hispanic councils, very engaged there as well too. And hopefully those are some really great resources to link into, understand what kind of tools and training are available as well too, to grow your business that way. But maybe, Laura, we can send the link both to our Better Days website and also maybe to our supplier diversity website. Like I mentioned, a little bit different, right, where that's more for our tier 1 suppliers, but I think it may just be of interest as well to what our programs look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be great. And we send next week, there will be an email that goes out to all of the attendees with a link to the recording. So when we send that out, we can also include those links to your website for the audience to be able to get more information.
Perfect.
And I know, like you've mentioned how you're working with your supply chain and value chain, and how they are important partners to this work. How does Kellogg's ensure that sustainable best practice is getting implemented on the ground? Because I understand you're not able to police it. So, and you mentioned third-party verifications, and can you sort of talk about that a little bit?
Well, sure. Maybe two angles. First is that, I mean, I definitely think, again, going back to, I think growers their land is their legacy, and they're also wanting to ensure the long-term sustainability and viable of that as well too. So we've seen a lot of partnership interest to develop these types of programs. And we learn a lot, more so, right, from our growers. To Jen's perspective, we're not the experts in this by any means. But what I think that we can do from our perspective as a global food company is be able to provide those opportunities, those partnership opportunities. We can partner in a community to understand how we can help support, whether that is through providing tools such as access to a regrow, as an example, or technical assistance, or what that is. But one other thing I would say that we do as well too, and there's different platforms for this, but besides using a tool like Regrow, there's a lot of continuous improvement measurement tools as well too. We have something internal called the Kellogg Grower Survey, where on an annual basis, we ask roughly our top 80% of volume suppliers around the globe to share progress against certain commitment or certain KPIs such as yield, water conservation, biodiversity, those types of things. But then we also, for some projects around the world, we also use third-party tools that already exist that have a lot of already maturity within them, such as the field to market, field print calculator, cool soil tools, SAI platform. So there's a lot of great platforms to be able to link up the data, and potentially where farmers might already be familiar with some of those platforms, and it gives us a way to be able to connect on that data. What we don't want to do is definitely, there's a lot of focus on reporting and tracking. We want to make sure we do that in the most efficient way as possible. Try to leverage some of the large existing tools that can demonstrate that, what the results of some of those initiatives are. We want to make sure that we don't make that a burden across the supply chain, use the existing tools as best we can. And then those tools are really important to provide insight, not only into performance, what's happening, but also what are the lessons learned for particular, practices that we can then partner together to scale, which is really what we need to do.
Absolutely. I'm realizing we have less than a minute left. We did not get through all of the questions that came in, but thank you to the audience for submitting those questions. And thank you, Jennifer and Janelle, for sharing your sustainability objectives at Kellogg's, and particularly the support that you're giving to sustainable agriculture through partnerships and sourcing, a topic very important to the Great Lakes region. I'm looking forward to sort of following your progress, and yeah, with the best of luck with all the targets that you are setting out to accomplish. So thank you to everyone who joined us today and contributed with your questions. We will send out an email with the recording next week, and we will have some additional links for you. So hopefully the questions that we didn't get to, you'll be able to find your answers through that website. So thank you again, and have a great rest of your day.